Where you go, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we get together and we talk about what's going on in the world of the Auburn family spectrum. Always heavy on the sports here on this channel, but if it's orange and blue, it is what we do. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kyle, the editor, the owner of the E2C Network, and I appreciate you stopping in to hang out with us, whether you're watching live or on the replay. We always appreciate your time spending to talk with us and hang out with us about what we love about all things Auburn. On today's live stream, we're going to be talking about the first press conferences for offensive coordinator Mike Bobo and defensive coordinator Derek Mason. Probably not a lot of outstanding information that we learned from this press conference, but I thought it might be important. I thought it might be fun to get on here and talk about that. There's also been about 2 more days since we last had a live stream of news and rumors and discussion points that we can probably touch on. But anytime we get on here and hang out with each other, we can talk about anything and everything Auburn. So if you are here, even if you're not watching live, but especially if you're watching live on the replay, you know the drill right now. Right now, post your city, your state, where you're watching from, if you're watching international as well, and make sure you hit that like button if you haven't done so already, letting other people know that we are live. They can join in the conversation because it's always more fun when we have tons of people in here hanging out with us to talk about everything Auburn. And let's see, we've already got a couple people already checking in. War Eagle to you, Jacob. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you doing so, hanging out with me tonight. So that's the main thing we're going to cover on the show tonight, and we will probably hit a little bit of everything here. I was actually surprised, like I said at the beginning here, there was not a lot of like groundbreaking information that we took away from the press conferences, but I found a few interesting points that I thought I might want to bring up on the live stream tonight. And I will go ahead and apologize to. I just remembered I actually started this a little bit earlier than it was scheduled, so I probably have a few people who are gonna be like, "What the heck? Why did we start early?" Schedules and stuff like that. You know how it goes. Imani's in the house. Good to see you watching from work. We have a lot of people that tune in from work. I'm honored. I don't know how your employers feel about that, but I'm not going to complain. I'll get you any way that I can take you. Opalika checking in. Also, Woodlawn at Tennessee. I knew there was a Woodlawn, Alabama, or high school, but I didn't know there was a Woodlawn, Tennessee. We got Alabama and Tennessee represented so far here in the chat window. So as you come into the stream, go ahead and share with me your thoughts about the press conference. If you haven't had a chance to watch them, you can find them online at anybody's or on your social media. They posted them. Their live stream is up on, I think, on Auburn football social media accounts, where you can hear for yourself what they said. This is just my reaction, my interpretation, my takeaway, so to speak, of what they said in their press conferences. I think everybody is still kind of on the same page that the one that makes us most excited is Derek Mason. He was the home run hire, I think, in many ways, of the coaching staff search for Bryan Harsin once he was hired on. I think Mike Bobo, for a lot of people, not necessarily me, but for a lot of people, it's kind of one of those hires. Like everybody's like, it's fine, but it doesn't like really excite us. He is both. I think the funny thing is they're both coming from similar trajectories. Former coordinators who became head coaches who didn't last one longer than other as head coaches and are now kind of trying to get their footing again before they probably once again go out and try to get a head coaching job at some point. I think most people will assume that Derek Mason probably won't be here super long, but it probably will be here for at least a couple of seasons. Mike Bobo feels to me like he has the most longevity there in terms of what will happen. So what I can do is start off talking about with what Derek Mason said, because I think there were some interesting things there that he said. They did note, both of them reiterated the schedule, that they will be in full pads starting this Thursday, I believe, and a scrimmage this Saturday. I have a little notepad down here. If you see me looking down all the time, that's why. They will start scrimmaging this Saturday. and meaning their first full scrimmage. I don't know if that's in the stadium or if it's going to be just at the practice fields. I would anticipate that means in the stadium. It's kind of the point of things right now. So that's kind of what's going on right now. One more day of just helmets and shoulder pads and things like that. And then they're going to be hitting live, doing big old football stuff, as people will probably say. All right, couple of things I'll just kind of walk down here as you guys pop in and post your questions and stuff for the Derek Mason thing. He was asked about Devin Kaufman, who was his one Vandy transfer that came over with him. One of the things that I found interesting, whether it was Bryan Harsin, Mike Bobo, or Derek Mason, I expected a little bit more attrition from their former teams over to Auburn. We didn't get a lot of that, even in the coaching ranks. I think he brought one, maybe two people over from Boise State, that being Bryan Harsin. We've got one player that came from Vandy, and I can't think of a Boise player, and I can't really think of it. Was it Mike Bobo out at Colorado State? I can't feel like there was something out there as well. Let's see. Mike Bobo didn't excite me. This is Lee, but his quotes from today were something us Auburn fans are not used to. He went into depth on footwork and development and actually given us insight into making Bo better. Bobo didn't excite me, but hearing him today does. I think that's a very fair comparison, and I think that's a way to kind of show you that maybe sometimes the big exciting hire isn't the right hire. That case could be made with Coach Harsin, right? There were a lot of big names out there. A lot of them I didn't like. But they kind of went for the one out of left field, and seems to be working out okay this yet. We'll find out what happens when they actually get into competition. But sometimes, the one that doesn't excite us the most might be the one that you actually need. So I think that's a great point that Lee brings up there. Full Speed and Lied reminds me of Tuberville. Yes, Tuberville did have that reputation, did he not? I loved me some Tuberville. I hated that his time with us was not long, personally. But anyway, we'll bounce around between Mike Bobo and Derek Mason as you guys bring it up. But we had addressed the Vandy transfer coming over here. One thing, and this is a good quote from Derek Mason that I really liked that he said. He stressed, when they come into my program, I want to send back a better product than when they came in. And that's kind of a many-fold discussion point on that type of comment there. So he's obviously, first of all, not saying that they had a bad product, meaning from the parents or something like that. I mean, there's probably situations where that's the case, but he's talking about obviously a better product as a football player, but as a man too. And I think you could interpret that based on how he was addressing that type of comment at the beginning of his press conference. So I really like that when he was talking about the Vandy transfer, he brought that up. I even wrote that down. I'm probably going to use that in some form on social media at some point. I want to have a better product that I'm sending out of my program than that was brought into my program. So that was just a great thing there. Mason called Kaufman an alpha male. That's a bold statement. Tavares Dawson got great talk today. Bobo talked about team needs speed at wide receiver, referencing Dawson, Robertson, and Malcolm Johnson. Yeah, I'll get to a little bit of that once I kind of work down my list, but I'm glad that you noticed that as well. I think that's the thing that's so interesting about the press conference today. You probably got more information, like in terms of pertinent towards gameplay and stuff, from Bobo, which is probably like flip it on your head what you were expecting out of the two of them. So I think that's kind of an interesting dynamic that happened there. He also, talking about Mason, he talked a lot about big picture goals. And see, that's where you can see the two differences in the press conference. There was a lot of big picture stuff as opposed to kind of fine points on this player's doing this better, this player's doing that better. Talked about stacking days on top of days. What I took away from this when Derek Mason said is there was a lot of mentality about the next thing, be prepared. It's kind of like in a basketball game. You have to be very like on it, thinking 2 steps ahead. I think they've got probably a lot of guys that were thinking too far ahead, whether that be about their careers or just about the next 2 plays. You got to stack things on top of each other and then build momentum. That's what it's all about. So he had a lot of great quotes in his press conference is what I took away from it. Just not a lot of big important things in my opinion. Important things in terms of like X's and O's and things like that. Here's another great quote from Derek Mason. Growth is optional. Change is inevitable. The question, and I'm taking a bit from him, what he said. He says, I'm sure he would reiterate it to say something like, it just depends on what type of change you're going to happen. You are going to change over time as a person, as a player, but are you going to grow or not? That is what is optional. So basically, he was just a quote machine. and that, I think that's the reputation that Derek Mason has. He's kind of he is a great coach in terms of X's and O's, but he's a great raw type of guy. He's the guy that the players connect with. And I think, especially on defense, you kind of need that type of person. So I think that's why he was such a great pick and hire for Coach Harsin. Casey's in the house. Good to see you. War Eagle from Birmingham. Nice to see more Alabama people checking into the chat window here. Let's see what else. Oh, something big that I really, this is probably, and I even underlined it on my list of things here that Coach Mason brought up. And even you saw the reporters in the room, they even asked for clarification on this because I don't think they were aware, any of us were really aware of this. So it's in any program, you've got position groups that they go through, obviously workouts and through drills together, also team meetings, and you obviously have whole team meetings, but you get into positional groups as well. They also have something that's called tiger groups. What is that? Derek Mason was asked to elaborate a little bit on that. Didn't really give specifics, but what he said and what I took away from it, this is probably groups that they have asked each other to be a part of randomly, meaning for cohesion, for coalescing. And they talk about a lot of life stuff, football stuff, but a lot of life stuff and all that kind of stuff, bigger picture stuff. What that tells me is this is a group of individuals, a team, a program right now that had a lot of still, and when I say non-cohesion, I'm not talking about because of the former coach, but because of the transition. I think there's a lot of hurt. And I think that was evident from what you saw of a lot of players transferring, what they're saying online, current players saying online. There's a lot of hurt from what happened. And I think they probably needed to kind of reconnect as a group. And that doesn't mean they go all sit around in a circle every time and talk about their feelings, but it means just come together, not just defensive backs, offensive linemen, but let's mix it up. Put the defensive backs and the offensive linemen, or half of them together and the other half together, or, mix and match, put different with the offensive line, let the running backs coach, Cadillac Williams, go spend time with them. That's what I took away from it. I know that seems like a very small, minute detail, but for me, that was the biggest takeaway from the Derek Mason press conference, is this revelation of tiger groups and why they implement it. Now, that may just be a Coach Harsin thing that he does typically, but I think that says something about where the program was at and the mentality, this mental state of a lot of the players there, that they had to implement that. I may be way over interpreting that. Just my feelings on the situation. Anthony says Mason is absolutely an energy coach. He gets pretty amped, which I like. And he has that kind of, I'll call it rough or gruff voice, but it's just you can tell he's got that mentality, that voice. When you put that package together, it's a lot of high energy stuff. So those were the main takeaways that I had, of the Derek Mason press conference. What else, if anything, did you have that stuck out to you if you haven't had a chance to watch it, or if you just have any thoughts about Derek Mason, what he'll be as a coach? Yes, I think it is all about the little details. And I think that when you have a restart of a program, which Auburn is in, I didn't want it, but whether you wanted it or not, you kind of have to get down to it and do a lot of the things that he said, like stacking days on top of days, taking care of some of these other things to kind of get people right in the right mindset again. Because if you're still dealing with all these issues of the transition, they're not going to be focused on the singular thing that you need them to be focused on, how to be a better player. Because if you're a better player, you're going to be better for your teammates. If you're a better teammate, then you're going to have a better team. If you're going to have a better team, you have better success, and so on and so forth. Casey says, I think the O-line is going to be really good this year. Hearing that Nick Brahms said made me feel better about the offensive line. See, Casey, I actually took a little bit of an opposite. Not that I felt worse about the offensive line, because I've had a very, I guess, not low opinion is not the right way, because I don't really think of any Auburn players that way, but I think of a position group that needs do a lot of mending is probably a good way of saying it. I think what I remember from his press conference, which was yesterday, they're aware of the criticism that they're getting. And that's why I stress here to be so constructive in any criticism that I give, because they could be watching. And I speak honestly, but I try to speak constructively. So always remember that when you're talking about these players online, they see this stuff. I kind of took that away. He referenced the other safety needing Smoke and Smoke needing Knighton. Is that what you said? Did I have that right? Yes, he acknowledges that he has a great player in Smoke, and with Jeremy and Sherwood being gone, Jeremy, I can never say that one for some reason, being gone, he really is going to need someone alongside him to kind of be his next man up. They asked a lot about Drayson Miller, a couple of other names as well. But maybe we didn't get a lot of detail from Derek Mason simply because there just aren't as many questions. I don't think they asked about Tyrone Truesdale, and I haven't really heard an update on that either. When they hired Coach Harsin, I wanted Kellen Moore as the OC. I knew it was a long shot. That was a big long shot. You don't become one of the most prolific offensive coordinators in the NFL and then come down to the college ranks. If you come to the college ranks, you're going to be a head coach. And he had an opportunity, and apparently it was very considering it heavily. And Boise State really wanted him to come replace Harsin, which I thought would have been a match made in heaven for them. But he said no. He's got a pretty sweet gig there in the NFL. Got a nice quarterback to run your offense with too. All right, Mike Bobo stuff. Again, we can bounce back and forth. Oh, before we get into that, as always, I want to remind you guys, if you haven't, please do check out the description of this video for links and ways to help support our content. By the way, I have not sent. I was going to make a post about it, but Rodney Fuqua, if you're here, you're the man. Rodney just became a channel supporter the last couple of days. Just now getting around to noticing it. Thank you so much, my friend. If you see this, appreciate you being a supporter. You can be a supporter too. That link at the top of the chat window or in the description, or you can just hit the join button on this page. That's the ways you can do that. $1 is all it takes, and you can get some emojis and little icons next to your name. You get commitment to us answering your comments and questions, all that kind of stuff. So check all that stuff out in the description. But if you just want to stay here and help support this type of content, there's the channel support stuff right there. Anthony says, taking my 4 kids to their first Auburn game against Akron. Army has kept me from going for about 10 years. Well, first of all, thank you for your service. I know you hit that a lot, and it seems kind of repetitive and maybe dull sometimes, but I hope you know we do appreciate that. Second of all, on your comment, what I've heard a lot about is people taking their families for the first time. Channel supporter and E2C Network Booster Club member Kevin Nelson, haven't seen him last couple of times, but I know he's here somewhere. He may be watching now. He is taking his son to his very first Auburn football game this year. There is something extra special about experiencing someone's Auburn fledged. What I'm trying to think of a appropriate word in their inaugural trip to the Mecca and experiencing those moments with them together. It's really cool. Really, really cool. If you ever get a chance to go with someone for the first time, you should. It'll rejuvenate your Auburn fandom personally. So even I can imagine what that'd be like for a parent and a child experiencing that too. So that's awesome. Kenneth, War Eagle from Jacksonville, Florida. Anyone heard anything about JJ Pegues? Great question. In fact, I kind of skipped over that here. So I know we're going to get to some more Bobo stuff in a second. That probably has some more things to maybe address. But I'm glad that they brought up Pegues. First of all, I call him Pegsasis, and I will not stop. One of the things that Derek Mason, when he was asked about it, he stressed Pegues not getting frustrated with himself. And I think what that tells me is that this is a guy who's so talented and understands how he has this talent to be so versatile. I mean, he was a quarterback in high school. He could be an offensive lineman, tight end, wide receiver, running back, whatever you want him to be. And he wants to contribute. He wants to be part of the solutions for these teams right away. But you're switching from back over to defense. It's going to take some time. So he stressed that a lot about him not getting frustrated with himself, but he's a guy very, very eager to do it. So if you're asking in terms of updates, Kenneth, there's no solid updates given. Will you see JJ Pegues out there? I would bank on it. How often is the question? As I've said several times, you don't have a talent like that and put it on the bench. You don't, at least for a long period of time. So you will see him. He's a freak of nature. Love his ability. I mean, it's hard not to love a guy that big that can move like that, is it not? I mean, it is just something else. Oh, also forgot a little mid-show reminder. If you haven't, please do make sure you smash the like button. It does help our stream out here. All right, Lee says, Bobo's comments on Bo really impressed me, being vulnerable, hungry, wanting to win, wanting to come in first in everything they do, being prepared, being in the film room. That's a business approach. So I am so glad that you brought this up, Lee. So I'm going to try. I think through some of these things before I go live, and then they all kind of come flooding back in. So I'm going to try to share this eloquently. One of the more frustrating things about this offseason has been people's almost pig-headed stubbornness to hate on Bo Nix. And there are very much opportunities to criticize Bo in a hard way. But, when we get to things like saying that he only got his position because of his dad, because of other reasons I won't address here that are not appropriate in any way, to say that that's why he's starting over anybody else. To say simply because he's the senior, to say simply because it's just Bo Nix. The kid is trying his darndest, and you just got Bobo to confirm it right there. If you had any doubts, Bobo is telling you that this kid understands the pressure of the situation. He's doing everything he can to be successful, being in the film room every chance again. They're catching. There's a saying that used to be called catching someone in the act of excellence. They're catching Bo in the act of excellence. Will that translate to the field at some point? Question is when. Will it be during his time at Auburn? So I gain a lot of respect. I've had a lot of respect for Bo overall since he got here. But to see some of that validated was very good from Bobo today. I thought that was a big takeaway from and he also said that one of the big things that Bobo wrote out, and I'm trying to figure out where I wrote it down here, talked a lot about players taking coaching. He mentioned Bo in this. They probably had a different style of coaching from the former staff. And this is a lot different. If you heard Mike Bobo in his press conference today, the dude could barely talk. You can tell he's a yeller. So there's probably a little bit different style of coaching that's been going on, good or bad. We'll find out. Not necessarily a reflection on the past coaching staff, just different. But I think that's what you've got, a lot of players that are adjusting to the way they're coached this way as opposed to the previous way. You've probably seen that with a little bit with the Bo too. And I think they've made Bo realize, hey, get back to some of these basics. Just like we talked about with Derek Mason, stack small things on top of small things to build yourself momentum. And that's how you get much better at a quicker pace. I'll be honest with you. A lot of people want to take these big jumps in a lot of things in life. I'm getting very philosophical tonight for some reason. I don't know why. But that was a good thing. So I'm glad you brought that up, Lee. He also, I'm bouncing around a lot, but also on the defensive front, he brought up on defensive line names, TD Moultrie, Iku, the transfer, and then Derek Hall. He loves him some Derek Hall. He really does. Nix really is Auburn to the core. Really hope he takes the next step. He doesn't have your ideal protection and targets you want when you're trying to excel at quarterback. Yes, I somewhat agree with that, but I will say that the potential is there for all of that to be just exactly what you need. Um, but I think a lot of what those two units need and Bo needs them together is what I've already said and what Coach Bobo said, what Coach Mason especially said, getting back to the basics so that the harder things aren't as hard because you have a good foundation to fall back on. Bobo also talked about finding their identity still on offense. Remember, there are a lot of players that were recruited for a much different system and a much different style of offense that are still on this team and will be for the next couple of years. Now, next year, it probably won't be as big an issue, and the next year probably won't be an issue at all. But this year, you've got a lot of players that are still adjusting to a different style of coaching, a different style of doing things, and a different style of offense. And so what he said a lot of, trying to find what our strengths are individually as position groups and as a whole as the offense, and figure out what those weaknesses are so we can steer clear of them. Still a lot of that going on, which shows me they still haven't got this thing pinned down just yet. So you may find a very simple, rudimentary offense, maybe very run heavy to start off the season. Play to your strengths. What are your strengths? Take Bigsby. Offensive line probably needs to do better in that area too. But I would say running the ball, Tank Bigsby. Strengths. I think I even remember it was noted in the practice sessions, they showed a lot of screen passes and stuff. We know that they do those a lot. Probably, we can disagree probably how well they do them, but they do those a lot from the previous staff. Start there, move forward. That's what I took away from that and finding their identity. I think it was Lee that brought it up earlier. Tavares Dawson. I actually was shocked to hear his name come up. In fact, I have made a video that will probably post tomorrow afternoon, essentially ranking the wide receivers because I think it's the most interesting group in terms of what it'll look like this year to talk about. So be looking for that. Probably will go live around 4 o'clock or something like that if you pay attention to the channel during about that time. But I list Tavares Dawson basically at the lowest you can get, not because I don't think he's going to be good and be an asset, but I think he's going to be not utilized a lot. Now I hear Mike Bobo talk. Seems a little bit different. They address the need for speed on offense, and apparently he gives a lot of that. One of the way the question was asked to basically addresses he's the future of this wide receiver, and you can see that, right? This team is basically all sophomores with like 2 seniors. Well, really 3, but I'm talking about 2 that'll see significant time, hopefully. Demetrius Robertson, and probably Shed Jackson if he can stay healthy. So if that happens, you've got those guys gone along with Kalen Newton. Sophomores, probably some of them will leave once they don't see their time, along with some of the redshirt freshmen. You've got a guy there that's going to be maybe and he's the only wide receiver in this class who could be a huge, huge asset and really needs to be the foundation for a restart at the wide receiver position. 3 more weeks, yes. Slowly getting here. Dawson is lightning the ball. He's going to shock some folks. Track speed. See, I wasn't aware of how fast he actually, was. I'm used to Anthony Schwartz speed. So we'll see. I don't know if anybody's going to compare with that, but speed kills in many ways. And if we can keep someone like that on our team, I'm excited for how they could be utilized. Remember, Anthony Schwartz as a freshman was kind of thrown in there, really small, a little bit undersized, but boy, did he make it work. In a multiple style offense, the question begs, how will they use Dawson and how will he work together? Kenneth, I'm sure the O-line can't wait for the season to start. Hope they step up and hush all the naysayers. And I think you saw Braum say that yesterday in his press conference. They hear the noise. They hear the questioning of them. And I've said some here, and I stand by what I say. But I hope it's been constructive in saying that I hope that, and I believe that they can do better. I think that's the reason why I've been so critical of them, is because I know they can do better. I've seen them do better. So I hope that they can. There's nothing better than for talent to meet with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. Could be a good recipe, but we'll see. We shall see. Okay, let's see what else I had on my list. We talked about Bo already, Tavares Dawson. He addressed that he had a relationship with Robertson before, meaning the UGA transfer before he got here. He didn't say it was like a big, X's and O's type relationship, just the relationships that you build during recruiting and stuff like that. So I don't know that that'll be the biggest asset for the two of them together, but you could tell that he was super excited to have him. I think he even said when he got here, I know that he was saying that about Tavares Dawson, but you could tell how excited he was to have Robertson here, and probably glad he's not playing against him too. As many UGA fans I've talked to have said. That's the funniest thing here, living here in Georgia. I talked to a few of them and I said, what you say about Robertson coming or leaving? And they went, it's fine. And then I said, he came to us, right? And they're like, yeah. And then they're like, oh, crap. Yeah. So that tells you what potentially we could have gotten out of him. I think Dawson will play a lot in the second half in Akron, Alabama State, Georgia State, because I think we already 40. Don't know that we'll be up that high. Maybe in one of those, maybe the Alabama State game, maybe the Georgia State game. Akron, I don't know that we're going to blow them out. I'll throw out a non-official prediction. I'll say we beat Akron probably like 17 to 40. Probably 7. That feels about right to me. Just kind of ballparking things right now. But the brilliant thing about the new rules of how often you can use somebody without them losing their eligibility, you'll probably see anybody they can throw out there who's ready for that type of action competition. Throw them out there. Get them ready. Let's do it. Dawson won't be as fast as Anthony, but he'll probably be the fastest player in college football. I don't know about that. Usually if you have the fastest player in college football, you'll know about it. And the fact that I didn't even know he was one of the fastest at Auburn tells me something. Could be that I just don't pay attention, but usually when someone's that fast, the fastest in college football, you hear about it. Like Bobo's run downhill mentality. Yeah, well, and I think too, you have to focus on that because of the type of running back that you're going to be utilizing. A tank, literally. I think there's a place for some of the more finesse, decision-making type of running. But when you got a guy like Tank, just let the guy do what he does best and run people over, go downhill. And block for him, preferably. All right, I'll stay on for a couple more minutes here. Get your last-minute comments, questions, derogatory rebuttals in. Again, out of these press conferences, there wasn't a lot of big takeaways, a lot of big picture stuff from Mason, a lot of more fine-tuned things, probably more things you're interested in from Bobo, but I still enjoyed most of their press conferences. They were not boring in any way. While I wait for you guys to get last-minute comments and questions in, again, reminder, please check out the description for all of the video description for all the links that you can help support, like the Booster Club, $1 a month as well for that. That gets you more access to other things where you can support all our content, podcast, YouTube channel, anything out there. I don't feel like I'm doing some kind of rave. Okay. There's also PayPal, TeePublic, all that kind of stuff there. I'm going to be putting a new logo on a t-shirt up there. You want to check that out too. And you can also just become a channel supporter here. It's an easy way to keep these live streams coming more often. As I've told you all, this is probably what I hope to be doing on a full-time basis at some point. You guys are making that easier by helping us out. So thank you all to the channel supporters, the E2C Network Booster Club members, and everybody in between. And thank you all for just being here. That's just as helpful. It's easier to run block than pass block. I don't know if I agree with that statement, Kenneth. I wasn't a lineman, though. I mean, I know you can't tell, but I don't necessarily agree with it. I think situationally, one's easier than the other. It's just a little bit more definitive statement than I would say. Does it feel more simpler? Probably, because you're waiting for one guy to run past your line of scrimmage. I don't know if it's that simple, though. We can't run Tank into the ground. Need Shivers and Hunter to help. Oh, Shivers is going to help. That's my favorite. One of my favorite guys in this team is, I think, Smoke Monday and Sean Shivers are my two favorites, and they're seniors. And my light just went off. Sorry about that, guys. That's what happens when you do live streams like 3-4 times a week. Your little light batteries run out when you forget to charge them. But yes, Sean Shivers will be contributing in a big way. Let's see. Tank and Shivers just need a lot of touches. I think Bobo will do well. Yes, or would arrange it. Would do well to arrange it. Yep. A little bit off topic. Auburn men's basketball will go undefeated in non-conference games. We have the easiest non-conference schedule, in my opinion. The one thing that I think you're forgetting, Casey, is that you're only seeing the first game in the Bahamas or Battle for Atlanta's non-conference tournament that we're in. That's just the one game you're seeing. You're forgetting that there's probably 2 other games after that, all against pretty good competition. So I will guarantee you we don't go undefeated. Guarantee it. And if I'm wrong, I will say it here on the channel. I'll make a video about how wrong I was. Shivers will be absolutely key this year. Yes. He is. This is probably the 1 year in a long, long time. Well, I think you could probably have made a case when Carry-On was here that the number 2 guy is just as important as the number 1 guy because of how much we are going to have to lean on Tank. Shivers is going to get tired. I mean, Tank's going to get tired. He might. I'm not even going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I can't jinx this. If I can't. Things might happen. Sean Shivers is capable. He's a freaking bowling ball. And I know it doesn't make sense with his name, but every time I see that man run somebody over, I just yell, "Shiver me timbers," or "Shivers me timbers." I know it's stupid. It's corny. It's like dad joke. Like, I get it, but that's just how I feel. Do you think our defense will be a top 10 defense? Cop out here. I think it has the potential to be. If you ask me to grade our units, that might get us to an answer. I would give our defensive backs an A from where I was standing. I'd give our linebackers like a B+. Defensive linemen, because of so much unknown and with this whole Tyrone Truesdale thing, I'm going to have to give them a C right now for now. So to me, that is not an ingredient for a top 10 defense at this moment, just looking at things in the preseason. Top 15? Probably. I'd feel very comfortable saying between 10 and 15. Top 10, though, at this moment, don't know. What do you guys think? Shivers can be like the 2010 McCaleb, except a much different player. But yes, utilized in a similar fashion. All right, guys, I appreciate you all so much for being here tonight. On your way out, please do make sure you smash that like button. It helps the video out. Make sure you're subscribed with that notification bell. New video comes out tomorrow about in the afternoon sometime, 4 o'clock. So tune in, leave a comment, hit the like button there as well. We'll be ranking the wide receivers, and let's see if you agree with me. I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of disagreement on that one, so I want to hear from all of you on that video. Till I talk to you guys then, though, War Eagle.